a lot of young guys are not getting married, they're not having kids, they're not even dating, they're not having girlfriends, and you're not going to see this on the news, you're not going to see this on Tucker Carlson or CNN or anything like that, but it's a massive trend. It's kind of taken over the West, and I think America specifically, young guys are kind of turning their backs on women, and a lot of people don't really understand, like, why is this happening? I want to talk about my experience and also one of my friends' experiences. One of my best friends, Luke, he's a really great dude, but he's a shorter guy, and he's always kind of struggled to date. He's never had a girlfriend, and I was hanging out with him yesterday, and he'd been talking to this girl. I was kind of excited for him, but he said that she kind of like ghosted him, and he told me he's pretty much done. Like, we were just eating, and he was like, dude, I think I'm done, like, trying to find a girl. Like, if something fell in my lap, I would definitely consider it, but I'm done just going over and over again and getting rejected over and over again. And he also talked about how his parents are divorced, and he's like, even if I do end up being able to date a girl and end up getting married one day, I think that, you know, the fact that I could get divorced and get half my stuff taken, his mom, like, there was some infidelity there, and he's like, dude, like, even if I do end up being able to attract a girl, there's always that opportunity for her to kind of ruin my life, and I'm just not really sure if that's worth, like, going through all the struggle of getting rejected, trying, getting your heart broken over and over and over again, and then eventually, like, you still don't have that guarantee that a woman's going to respect the marriage vows and is going to continue to, like, be loyal to you. It's a really big problem. I think that Luke is just like one of millions of guys, and I think that social media, dating apps, they've made like this relationship thing not what it's supposed to be. Like, our parents' generation and older generations, I think they kind of naturally had a different view on humans because they didn't see humans as like a number, as just like a swipe or anything, or they didn't really have like a clout check. Like, obviously there were famous people and rich people back in the 1900s and stuff, but you didn't have this like level of clout and social status that Instagram or TikTok or some of these things kind of have made normalized. I think that girls have kind of had a lot of their like standards just kind of cooked by like social media, and I think when you combine a lot of the things that we have in society today, a general sense of nihilism, like the death of religion, and you've got a lot of people that don't really see like dating as something that it's only for marriage. Like, you don't have people really dating to settle down. You have a lot of girls just dating like the hottest, most high status dudes they can get, and they're not really concerned about like, you know, trying to stay loyal to one guy. They're just kind of boosting up their social status, and I think that this is kind of the reason why a lot of young guys are kind of dropping out of the game. They think that it's almost an unfair game. Like Luke, you know, he sees the potential for divorce. He knows about the painful reality of like divorce laws and custody laws because he experienced it with his parents. He's faced rejection, he's faced heartbreak, and he's just kind of like, you know, well, I can just enjoy playing video games, hanging out with my friends, doing what I like to do, trying to get a career, like make some money. But it almost seems like he feels just discouraged to a point where he's kind of given up. And it's a sad reality because we're not meant to be alone as young guys. We're meant to be hanging out, dating, being romantic and physical with young women. It's just kind of how we're biologically programmed. It's how God made us, or at least that's what I believe. I'm a Christian, and I think that God kind of made the feminine and masculine energy to kind of match each other, to have like almost something to lean on. Like, they're complementary in the right setting, but society now has made a lot of men more feminine and they've made women more masculine. And when you combine that also with the whole idea of just like gender roles being destroyed, traditional values, religion kind of being destroyed, and then you also pile on top of that like social media, the status check, dating apps, where there's more guys on dating apps than girls. Like, I think it's like 70% of people on dating apps are men. And also, men don't really have like the monogamy standard that a lot of our parents kind of expected. Some girls don't even really care if a guy has like other girls that he's hanging out with, as long as he's a very attractive, like successful, high status guy. They're more willing to just try to get with that guy than like a guy that's just slightly less attractive that will settle down and want a marriage with them. A lot of girls are not really concerned about having kids, being in a monogamous relationship. They just want to kind of hoe around and hang out with like a Chad type of guy. Even if they can't get all of him, like they'd rather take some of that guy than all of a guy who's kind of below him on the dating scales, if you use like the 1 through 10 scales. Hypergamy and polygamy are kind of what's taking over. And I think it's been like a slow burn, but we're getting to a point where the statistics are really starting to show this, not just in like the birth rate decline, but also just, I think Pew Research does a lot of dating type like polls and stuff, and a ton of guys are saying like they're not even looking for dates, they're not interested in dating, they've kind of turned their back on the game. They're like, okay, I work 40 hours a week, I got to go to the gym, I only have a certain amount of free time, I don't really want to spend that free time working so hard just to get rejected and set up to fail. I'm gonna go fishing, I'm gonna play video games, I'm gonna do what I want to do, I'm gonna enjoy my life, spend time in nature, reading, watching TV, hanging out with my friends, drinking, maybe smoking. They don't really want to spend that little bit of free time that we get trying to play a losing game. No, I think that it's really sad. I think it's a tough situation. And I also want to encourage guys, if you feel like you're a lot like Luke, and this is what I told Luke, and I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for this in the comments, but I don't think giving up is the right option. I think that you just have to kind of shift like your priorities. Now, Luke's not a religious guy. I think that he's not really going to take the advice, but I know that for me at least, I'm a Christian guy, and I want a Christian woman. And what Christianity kind of teaches, and I mean it demands of its followers, is monogamy and marriage if you're gonna settle down. Like, you can stay single as a guy, you can kind of go monk mode, and like 1 Corinthians, Paul talks about this. Like, it's not a sin to not get married, but if you do want to be sexually active, if you want to have a family, you're supposed to do that in the marriage covenant under God. 2 flesh become one and have a family. And I also think that Christian women in general will respect that vow at least a lot more than secular women. Like, a woman who's actually serious about her faith, she's in her church, like involved, she has a history of taking sex seriously, hopefully she's a virgin or has like 1 or 2 bodies, she's going to be much more likely to stay committed to marriage, to have a healthy view on what love is. I think a lot of secular women, they've been kind of brain rotted by TikTok, by propaganda and podcasts, Sex in the City, Call Her Daddy, all that stuff. It's kind of skewed what their realistic like vision of a relationship looks like. But a woman that's really involved in religion, not just Christianity, but I also think like other religions can be a lot more healthy than secular liberal society. They kind of understand that marriage is not like a walk in the park. It's not going to be an easy thing. You're not always going to feel lovey-dovey. What it really is sacrifice, a mutual respect, shared values, and creating an environment to have kids. And that's why it is really important. Like, I wouldn't tell a guy, don't date a girl unless she has like a good family. But if a girl comes from like a healthy family environment where her parents are still together and they haven't separated, she understands that they're not always in this like deep lovey-dovey phase. They just created a life together and they've kind of stuck through it. They've stayed committed, and it's rewarded them with a life where now they can actually have a family. They can have someone to do life with. Now, I think that's a lot better than trying to go through life solo, because life's really difficult. I don't want to go through all this alone. My parents are getting older. They're going to die one day. I've already had a family member pass away. There's going to be deep loneliness in your 40s and 50s if you don't have a family or you don't have like a wife, because, you know, in your 20s, like Luke, he can hang out with us. Like, he hangs out with us a lot. I'm hanging out with him tonight. You can do a lot of fun stuff to fill up your time, but if I get married, which I want to, and have kids, I'm not going to be able to kick it with them in my 30s and 40s nearly as much. And all of his friends are going to start kind of settling down, hanging out on the weekends, going fishing, like going to the gym together. That stuff's going to become few and far between for a lot of those guys. So if you're really considering this, I would really try to think about your life from like a top-down view. Assume that you're going to live to 80 years old. If you're 20 right now, do you want to spend the 60 remaining years you have like alone and single? Be honest with yourself. Like, there's some guys that are willing to do that. And if you're a Christian guy and you want to try to spread the word and really dive into your faith and your relationship with God, if that's what you feel like you're called to do, go for it. But if you're like a secular guy and you're just kind of like fed up with the game, kind of like Luke, I wouldn't recommend giving up. I would recommend trying to shift your priorities. I would also recommend, of course, I'm a Christian. This is a shameless plug, but you should probably look into the church, look into theology, read Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis, read the Bible, listen to the Bible while you work out, become a Christian and look into that, because that's kind of the last good bet you have as a young guy to live a meaningful, a purposeful life in the West. And it is also like the truth. I truly believe in Christianity, and I think that it's going to change your life if you actually give it a decent, like, realistic chance to do that. Like, look into God, look into Christianity, figure out what you believe, and then it also kind of opens the door to have a much more healthy relationship. Christian women, like a woman who's actually serious about her faith and respecting the traditional values of Christianity, she's going to be a much better wife than a secular woman who's been propagandized by Call Her Daddy, Sex and the City, all these crappy love rom-com movies where everybody's going buck wild, fucking whoever, and then they have some $100,000 wedding and they live happily ever after. That's not the realistic situation that happens in those things. Like, in reality, that relationship goes downhill after a couple months. They start hating each other. The girl takes half the guy's assets in court. She fucks his best friend to get back at him, and then he's left miserable. So don't be that guy. But that's why I think a lot of young guys are turning their backs on women. I can't necessarily blame some of these guys, but I also would just say, like, my genuine piece of advice would be, maybe don't give up on the game. Maybe just change your strategy in a major way. Don't pursue liberal, secular women. Also, don't give up on women as a whole. Pursue the wholesome, good, traditional women. And for me, that's going to be a Christian woman. And that's kind of my opinion. Like this video, share this video.